Welcome to Yoga is Science, the podcast where Western medicine meets Eastern philosophy. I'm Colynn Vosburgh, a former emergency room nurse and medical student turned full-time yoga teacher. With over 200 teacher trainings taught, I've come to understand how yoga really is the original science of life. And I'd love you to join me as we explore the profound ways that ancient wisdom and modern science intersect to support healing, growth, and transformation. Let's dive in. Okay, all right, friends, welcome everyone. Today we are talking about samskaras. So you may have heard about this word and you may not have. Um, as samskara is a latent impression. Basically, that's what it translates as. Um, of course, I like to connect it to modern science and our nervous system. So you could look at that as wiring your nervous system. One of the talks that I do that I think is like a really cool one, it's called The Picture of You. And basically, it's talking about samskaras. So there's so much to go, and I usually have like visual aids to help me here, and I'm not going to. I'm going to tell you based on not visual aids as a way to support you in understanding. So, um, you're born, okay? You're born, and you are literally taught how to put your pants on. Now, when we look at this from like an outside perspective, this is literally you're taught these things and it's how you learn anything. It's how you your emotions, how to communicate, like literally everything. But what I love about it is like when we're looking at how to put on your pants, then it's a little less emotional or like deep as a way to look at how you learn to emotionally respond to people. So you are a little baby and you were born, and immediately you're not going to be naked because you pee and you poo everywhere. So your parents want to cover that up so that's not happening all the time. So they start putting diapers on you and then they start putting other things on you like sleepers, clothes, pants. Okay. So every single day you are dressed, and it's not like, I mean, you're a newborn, so it's not like your parents are probably taking the time to be like, when you're standing up, you put all the weight into the left foot, you lift your right leg, you put your right leg in the right leg pant hole. Pull your pants up to knee height, and then you put your left foot into the left leg while putting your weight on the right foot, blah, 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 right? Not going to happen. And in fact, interestingly enough, there's probably not ever a day that that specifically happened. But you put your pants on every day now, right? So if there wasn't a day of teaching you how to put your pants on, then how did this play out? Well, as mentioned, you were born, your parents put your pants on for you. And your parents put your pants on every single day, but they also put their own pants on, probably while you were watching. And if you had any siblings or like younger people around, then those people either put their pants on or your parents put their pants on for them as well. So what you learned was not only experiential, like it being done to you, it was also visual. You watching people do it to themselves or other people. And there was probably an auditory component to that as well, of like your parents and what they said while they were putting pants on themselves, you and other people. So, literally at some point, you woke up, you got up, and you put your own pants on. And either that went well or it didn't. Like you put them on backwards, and your parents either just left you or taught you, like, oh, the pockets go in the back and the zipper and the button go in the front. So every single day, these things happened. And it was not just like having it happening to you and not just like you doing it for yourself, but it was also witnessing people doing it on themselves. So, I mean, this is wiring of your nervous system. You're born, and literally everything that you know right now, you were taught. So everything, not only that you know, but that you believe, you were taught. You were never self-taught. So if you are a Christian, you were not just born a Christian, you were born and then you were taught to be a Christian. You were taught by your parents going to church. You were taught by the way your parents show up, like in their religion, how you are supposed to show up in the religion. So this can be a tough pill for people to swallow, but this is literally the wiring of the nervous system. Whatever your parents kind of like did or said, you learned, and then you believed that is truth because you were a baby and then a child, and you didn't have like conscious thinking where you could differentiate this is incorrect or this is correct, right? Free thinking doesn't arrive on the scene until you're like 9 to 12 years old. I don't know if you remember the day where you realize, like, oh my God, my parents are not superheroes. They're actually people that are kind of messed up. So everything that you learned was literally being programmed into your nervous system. In fact, when you were in your mom's tummy, you were already being trained how to think and feel because you were an extension of your mother's own nervous system. So you learned already key behaviors before you even came out. So just think about like the state that your own mother was in when you were developing, and think about like were you planned, were you not planned, was this like a good thing, was this like not a good thing? Because inherently you felt those things through your mother, and then you were born. So you were born, and then you literally learned how to think, what to believe, what core values you have. These were all things that were taught to you. And so here was a huge, huge realization for me. So my children, I love them very dearly. I'm sure, most people do. And I just there was when I was having them, I never really thought I would be a parent. That was kind of like not my idea. I was worried that I wouldn't be a good parent, which is why I didn't want to have kids. And then I got pregnant and then I was having a baby. Their dad was super stoked about it. Their grandma was super stoked about it. So it felt like, oh, well, here I am. Like I'm having this baby. So as a mother, how am I going to show up? So I decided that I was going to show up nonviolent. So I wasn't going to put my hands on my kids. I decided that as a kid, I didn't really hear like a lot of I love you, and I didn't experience a lot of like kind touch. So I thought, well, I'm going to touch them so they're comfortable with touch in a nice way. And I'm going to tell them all the time that I love them and that they can literally like be anything they want to be. They can do anything that they want to do. And that is going to make it so that they are great. So I had my kids, they're amazing. And I did all those things. I consciously like didn't physically like abuse them. I did my best not to emotionally abuse them. I did my best. I read a lot of books and I touched them physically a lot. I remember they would touch me. One of the things I didn't really like was like hanging off my neck. But I talked myself down, like it's okay that they're touching me because I really didn't like touch, to be honest. I didn't like to hug. I didn't like those things. So it took me to be conscious to do those things to my kids. And then I told them all the time, like, they can do whatever they want, like, be, not do whatever they want, but like be whatever they wanted, that it was totally accessible for them. And then I also just like told them how much I loved them and how beautiful they were. So fast forward many, many years, 14 years. And my daughter, one of my daughters, starts really acting out. She's behaving in ways that, in my mind, are not like representative of someone who loves themselves. And it hit me like, but I don't understand why. Why is this happening? Why are these behaviors happening when I taught my daughter that she was amazing? Like I taught her that she could do whatever she wanted. I taught my daughter that she was amazing and that she could do whatever she wanted and that she was so beautiful. So why is she not integrating these lessons into her life? And she is doing such self-harm behaviors that she's acting like she has no respect for herself, that she doesn't love herself. And it took me a bit, like I couldn't grasp onto it because of the way that I had showed up for her, them in growing up. And then it hit me. I was actually on a retreat and it hit me like that I had also, just like putting on pants, I had also demonstrated how to love yourself. And I failed miserably because I hated myself. So here I am, like telling my kids they're beautiful. So I'm saying one thing, telling them to love themselves, telling them they can be whatever they want. And yet, in the other breath, I am talking about how fat I am. I am talking about how ugly I am. I am talking about like delete that picture, look at my double chin, which is still here with me. Thank you, chin. Like I was not in integrity or congruency with the messaging that I was sharing with my kids. So it hit me that we don't just learn to put on our pants by our parents sitting us down and teaching us like step by step how to put our pants on. We learn by watching them. We learn by trying it ourselves. We learn by watching other people. And so here are my kids that I love so much that are so beautiful that like, they're just, I love them. They're amazing and they can't see it. They're letting people treat them unkindly. They're doing things that are harming to themselves, not loving to themselves. And I mean, I had already left. They had already moved out by the time I had this insight. And I remember sharing it with them right away. Like I failed as a mother because what I did was I helped them to wire their nervous system to self-hatred because I demonstrated as a mother, as a woman, how to behave around, I mean, men, women, other women, whatever, how to behave in relationship and then how to treat oneself. And what I know from the four agreements is that will we will let people treat us literally only as bad as we treat ourselves. So if we show up in a way that we allow someone to put their physical hands on us, like they get away with it once, twice, like you're literally just letting them. And I'm not coming from a place of like victim shaming. But there's like a stand of saying no, right? Don Miguel Ruiz says that the abusee becomes the abuser by not saying no. So I know there's lots of like side notes and lots of different things that you can say on that. That's not the point of this conversation because yes, I get it. Like there are many movies Many situations in which, I'm not showing up and looking at it from all sides. So I'm not going there. I'm just going from the place of like, we will put ourselves in situations in which we are not treated kindly, only because at the heart of ourselves, we won't treat ourselves kindly. So literally, if you're wiring since you're a child, and example, your mother has a lot of self-hatred, even if she chooses to share love with you and tell you that you're amazing, the way she treats herself is going to impact you probably more than the words that she says. I think about my parents like smoking a cigarette, telling me, don't smoke, it's so bad for you. Like, okay. Monkey see, monkey do is another word that I've heard many, many times. So the wiring of the nervous system isn't just um, what people say, it's like what we witness. So, whatever things that your parents said when you were younger, one I can think of is like, money doesn't grow on trees, right? Money doesn't grow on trees. What's the energy behind that? I always talk about what's the energy behind that. Money doesn't grow on trees. So, if I want something and you can't afford it, your answer is money doesn't grow on trees, which means like there isn't an abundance of money. There's a lack of money. So overall, energetically, I lack money. And if I keep hearing that over and over and over again in response to wanting to purchase something, then full on, that's going to be my mindset when it comes to finances. There isn't enough. There isn't enough for you to be happy. There isn't enough for you to get what you want. Like there isn't enough money. And if that's like foundational to me, like growing up and becoming an adult, then that's wired into my nervous system and that becomes a samskara. Now, samskaras aren't just bad, right? But they are very foundational. So again, the self-hatred that I had for myself really taught my kids self-hatred. That's how you treat yourself, like shit. But you know what else you do? You treat everybody else really kindly and tell them how amazing they are. That's bypassing my friends. So I literally taught my kids to be people pleasers, which you really only can be a people pleaser if you don't love yourself. So that became that we talk about this, like I talk about this in my coaching program as like a story. That's your story, that money doesn't grow on trees. I when someone tries to come up with like what are your three main stories? Because subconsciously, whatever you believe is true. Consciously, whatever you say is not necessarily true. Those things cannot be in alignment. Exactly what I was saying. Hey, kids, love yourself. You're so beautiful. You can do whatever you want, but I'm fat and ugly and I'm a piece of shit. Like, that's what I was teaching them. So basically, instead of teaching them self-love, I was teaching them to love other people more than they love themselves, which is in general something I think we're taught by using the words polite, don't be rude. Like, yeah, like children are to be seen and not heard. Like, there's so many different things that we ingrain or were ingrained in us, and they become our stories. So, whether you know it or not, and this is why it's so important to start to learn your internal stories, your subconscious beliefs, because consciously you may not know, like consciously I didn't know while I'm telling my kids love yourself that I unconsciously hate myself and therefore am teaching them how to behave as a human. So if I had known unconsciously that I hated myself and that I was teaching that to my kids for them to hate themselves, then definitely I would have changed my behavior, but I wasn't aware. And so think about this being an unconscious belief, like I hate myself or I'm not enough or I mean, I'm fat. One of my stories is I am a fat piece of shit. That's one of my stories. So if that's one of my stories, another one is I'm unlovable, and then another one is I don't belong. So these are stories that I've had that I need to know so I can actually start to change them first and foremost. Just wanting to, I keep talking in present, like these are my stories, but they're not anymore. And so if I keep saying them like as my present story, then that will keep coming true. So let's look at a woman that has a story of like, I'm unlovable, I don't belong, I'm a fat piece of shit. Those are the stories I had. And then I come from that place, not knowing it fully, and I go to look for a partner. What kind of partner do you think I am going to land? Right? Do you think I'm going to land like an emotionally intelligent, mature, strong individual? No, because that person is probably not attracted to me at all because of the things I say about myself, the way I dress, the fact that I don't take care of myself, and that I let people walk all over me. If he's looking for a project, sure, but he's probably not looking for a project. So, this is why it's important to know like, if I have those stories, then that's usually if I'm looking for a relationship, friendship, mothership, like relationship in my family, I'm gonna let people treat me like crap because I think I'm crap. And that's a samskara. It's a latent impression that we kind of like keep going back to over and over again. It's been explained to me like the groove in a record that the needle keeps returning to. So while we might be like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I love myself. Unfortunately, if I don't actually take the steps, have the willpower, and keep focusing on loving self, that's never going to come true for me. And I'm always going to go back to choosing from a place of like, of self-hatred. And so if you hate yourself and you pick a partner, what do you think that partner is going to be like? Do you, right? That partner is literally going to strengthen your own belief, which is what starts to happen. Subconsciously, we attract in people that will concrete our belief because it's your belief, it's your truth, and you will continue to prove it, especially if you're unconscious to it. So it was never like full on like a chosen thing to pick a partner that might be physically abusive, emotionally abusive. But one of the things that I've learned over time is that, you know, essentially, historically, I'm a doormat. And so I'm a punching bag. I'm just someone like that's a receptacle for your crap. And imagine that I find a partner. How do you think, like, what do you think my partner's going to be like? He's going to dump on me all the time. He's going to be physically abusive. He, she, they. Like, I am literally choosing from a completely blind place of not knowing, which is why learning your samskaras are so important. How do you learn your samskaras? Well, one of the things I like to bring up is because a lot of my stuff is like business related. And or love related. So I'll ask you like two questions. Either do you have $1 million or what do you want? Like how much money do you want? Do you think you'd be safe, stable, and strong for meeting every one of your needs in your life, period, right? Is that $1 million? Great. Why don't you have it? And now tell me your excuse as to why you don't have $1 million. And I do mean excuse. I'm never saying that like an excuse isn't legit. A lot of excuses are legit, but like they're also excuses because you don't need to make the $1 million. It's already made. It's already out in circulation. You just need to like funnel it towards yourself. If you loved yourself, if you believed in yourself, if you're authentic and vulnerable and resourceful, then you would funnel that $1 million towards yourself. If not, it's time to look at like what story is in your head that keeps you from making the $1 million. And the other one that works for people, if $1 million are like more than a million, 10 million, 100 million, 1 billion, like whatever that story is for you, if it's in the opposite, then the question that I have for you is specifically like around a partner. Do you have the love of your life in your life? If not, why not? And there will be many stories that come up. So why don't you have $1 million? Because I'm not smart enough. Because I'm unlucky. Why don't you have the love of your life? Because I'm 50, I'm too old. Like, what's the story that you have going about why you don't have what you want in your life? And you're going to come up with a route into one of your three main stories. Now, I have a million stories. The money doesn't grow on trees. Um, my dad said many times, women are the useless skin around a vagina. Like I have had so many things entered into my mind that have then created an experience that came up with a story. So the sort of like I don't belong is that like I always felt like I didn't belong in my family. I always felt different. 100%. I felt like I was too fat. I even as a child, there was jokes about me being the mailman's child. I didn't look like my dad. I didn't look like my siblings. They're all quite thin. And even like my mom at the time was a thinner woman. So I always felt like I didn't belong in the family. And to be honest, I've always been like self-aware and a little more chill. So that is one of the stories, and that's where it came from. It wasn't just like one thing and somebody said like you don't belong. It was literally like the experience and the consistent experiences, situations, memories, happenings that rooted it in my nervous system of like, I don't belong here. I'm not one of these people. Same when it comes to like the fat piece of shit, like my dad's views on women and what they were for, which was also a very common thing in the 80s, very chauvinistic, lots of white males, lots of males still believe in that as well, that I'm a lesser sex because I am a female. And in the wheel of privilege and power, I am less privileged and less powerful because I am a woman. And so like that became the like the piece of shit part and then the like disposable like women are for sex kind of thing. And I didn't have a perfect body. So notice what I'm sharing is like how that contributes to a story that I created based on the experiences that were happening in my life. And I'm unlovable really comes from the way that I felt that nobody loved me, to be honest. The repeated situations in which I consistently came out with, like, I am unloved. I'm the lowest of the low. I am the doormat, the punching bag, the garbage receptacle. Those were the stories that came. And that continued, like that's the thing is once it's a subconscious belief, if you aren't aware of it, if you're not conscious to it, then you will unconsciously, subconsciously attract those things into your life. So I literally attracted in someone very similar to my dad that was like into thin, perfect women with fake boobs, like full on porn. And that became like, since women are for sex, if I'm not perfect all the time, if I'm not physically thin, if I'm not wearing makeup, if I don't have blonde hair, if I don't have long nails, if I don't have all these things, then I am useless. Which then, when there were some situations, because let's just talk about self-hatred being at the root of trying to be beautiful, like those things don't match up. So what are some other ways that I can be of value or worth? Right? I'm funny. You may not know, but I'm very funny. I also became, like successful in a way, first of all, intellectually, like intelligent. I'm smart. I'm going to be, I became a nurse and I'm going to be a doctor. Like that is how I get noticed and stand out from other people. Um, and then just like continuing to do things like bringing in finances and then paying all the time, paying for lunch all the time, paying for dinner all the time, paying for literally everything all the time. What kind of people do you think I'm attracting in when I'm doing that? People that are going to let me pay for everything and then still be an asshole to me because I'm not good enough. Right? So then all the decisions I made were based on I'm not enough, but I didn't even realize it. So everyone I attracted in just like literally confirmed that story for me. I'm unlovable because look what's happening here. I'm putting out everything I can. I'm trying to be as perfect as I can. I'm working out all the time. I'm going, getting massages, getting my hair done, getting my nails done, getting this, trying to be the perfect mom, trying to make all the money on top of it. And I'm still a piece of shit. And I'm still being treated like crap. My partner's still choosing beer over me. I'm not enough. I'm unlovable. And then I leave that marriage and then move on to the next one, which again, I put all the money into it. I I did all the things I could. None of it was ever good enough based on my story, my experiences, not negating the other person's. And at the end, I tried to I tried to say like this isn't working. What can we do? This isn't working. What can we do? Let's do this. Let's do this therapy. Let's do that. Let's do and it came back down to like I suck. I'm an asshole. I need to change and I'm not good enough. And I like have continually had this as my story. Now, all of a sudden I become aware and it's like, oh, oh yeah, if that's how I feel about myself, no wonder I would attract in that partner to confirm even more that I suck. Wow. And then you know what? I leave that, but then the next partner, I pay for everything. The next partner becomes my child. Because without, mothering, I have no value. So like, whoa, whoa. So our samskaras can be changed full on. And the idea is to become aware of our stories so that we can have the opposite. So if I've got my opposites, and whenever I recognize like a situation isn't going very well, I can see like, oh, this is coming from the story of I'm unlovable. Here I am paying for everything once again. Here I am, like doing everything I can to get this person to love me. But like essentially, I don't love myself. So I am lovable, right? The opposite of I am unlovable is I am lovable. And the only way that I can really wire that in my nervous system is by treating myself with love. Not going to somebody else who's going to love me because guess what? I'm going to pull in another person that will concrete the unlovable part. So the number one thing that I can do to shift my samskara, which think about this, it's been a groove and a record that's been played over and over and over again. So every time that groove gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So the only way that I can change that is by literally thinking I am lovable more than thinking I'm unlovable. And I got some catching up to do. So if I were to tell you, going back to the way I started this, all of a sudden become aware of how you put your pants on. So become aware of what's going on in your mind 24/7 and then start to put your pants on different. It's going to take you having to slow down and be present and then literally doing the opposite of what you're used to doing, literally doing the opposite of what you're comfortable doing, literally doing the opposite of what you do on autopilot. So another way to do that is like, listen, you were taught to write with a hand, right? You grabbed a pen and you started writing. So let's just say most people are right-handed, lots of people are left-handed. Unfortunately, there was a time when left-handed people were like to submit to being right-handed. How messed up is that? But whatever, there's a lot of messed up stuff that's gone on in this world. So I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. But like wherever you are now, whether you're right-handed or left-handed, this is a really great practice. Take your pen, write on the piece of paper, I love you, right? Took 2 seconds. It's probably pretty neat. Now, switch from your dominant to your non-dominant hand and write, I love you. And have a look at the difference between the two. First of all, the non-dominant hand, you look like it's pretty bad, right? It's messy, doesn't look good. It took way more time. You had to think about how to hold the pen, how to write the letters out properly. So switching samskaras or switching your stories, it takes that much time, that much energy. Now, if you show up every day and you write, I love you 10 times per day with your non-dominant hand, by the end of the month, you're going to be like pretty neat with your writing. By the end of the year, it's going to be like really neat. And within 3, 4 years, it's going to be quite natural, right? Like you're going to not have to really think about it as much. That's how much time and energy it takes to actually shift your stories. So the story, I'm unlovable, I've been thinking it, I'm 45. Let's say I became aware of my story when I was 39. So for 6 years, I have become aware of it. I've noticed that like how it shows up in different ways. So um, one time I was like at a retreat center and we had a staff meeting and everybody came and they were all perfect. Everybody was a yoga teacher. They were all 3 pounds. Like, and I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and without even thinking about it, I thought, what the F are you doing here? That's what I thought in my head, but I caught it. And that was the first time I caught it in the moment. And I was like, oh, whoa. First of all, that came from a place of I'm unlovable. I'm a fat piece of shit. I don't belong. All three of those were playing out there, and I caught it. And I was like, whoa, that was so unkind. I said this in my own head. That was so unkind, Colynn. I do belong here. I may not always fit in. That's my counter story to I don't belong. Is like I may not always fit in, but I do belong. And then I thought, I am, see, the shift from like I'm unlovable to I'm lovable, that's an easy one. I am lovable. I can prove that because there have been people in my life that love me. I'm sure of it. So I am lovable. And then the like the fat piece of shit one, that was a hard one because automatically I think, oh, I'm beautiful. And if I look in the mirror and I look at myself, pretty much 9 times out of 10, I don't think I'm beautiful. I'll look at my double chin. I'll look at some like wrinkles that I have going on, the fact that I've aged so much. I'll look at those things and then so what happens is like, is I am uniquely me. That's it. Like it's not that bad of a thing. And I never like signed a document that said what was beautiful or perfect. And so I am uniquely me. And for now, that really works. So I said those things to myself in that moment. I stopped, I looked in the mirror. I didn't say it out loud because I was in a group of people, but in my head, I said, I'm uniquely me. I may not always fit in, but I do belong and I am lovable. So I'm here for a reason. And then I sat down and I continued the staff meeting based on that. So these are all like ways that we reprogram, and it's like you have to come to it as much as you possibly can to retrain your mind that has been literally doing its own thing for so long to recognize that like that's not kind. And what that has led me on a journey of, like, I'm still not perfect. And like I said, it's been 6 years, but I'm way better. I'm better at catching myself of thinking like, oh, there's that double chin again, to like, well, I mean, like, here I am. Like, here I am. And then I can do things if it really bothers me to try to make it less. I can go lose some weight. I can like, there's things that I can do, but I'm not obsessed with the fact that like with self-hatred. I know that what I do is helpful, and I know that if I sit here and I'm not going to do anything until I'm perfect, I'll just never get anything done. So I'm doing it now, and I go up and down, and here we are. I also am lovable, and I do love myself, and that's what matters. So I never signed up for what was perfect, and I don't even think that I would want to fit into that box, whatever that box looks like. So I think that's where I'm going to stop. There's so much more to it, but that's the idea is like become aware of your samskaras, your latent impressions, the thoughts that your mind go back to. And the number one way that you can do this is by being aware. Start to be aware of what you're thinking all the time. When I ask you, why don't you have $1 million? What's your initial thought? When a super hot person walks by, what do you think immediately? If, someone says no to you, where do you go? Start to become aware because awareness is the key. And then after the awareness is like, well, become aware of what your stories are. And then once you're aware of your stories, then start to see where they're playing out in your life all the time, and then take the time to shift it, to start writing with your non-dominant hand, to show up every day, because that's when the change is going to take place. So if you've heard the word samskara many, many times, this is how it relates specifically to the nervous system and the wiring of your brain, your mind, and your body. Thank you so much for listening, and uh, I'll see you again soon. All right, so Frik-shuhn Yoga podcast. Yoga is science. You can come on my app. The app is the Inclusive Yogic Path. Sign up, and the podcasts are free, and everything else is functional, inclusive, and literally life-changing. So for $20 a month, change your life. Anyways, thanks for being here, and I will see you again soon. Okay? Bye. Thank you for joining me on Yoga is Science. I hope today's episode offered you a fresh perspective on the incredible synergy between the ancient yogic practices and our modern day science. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who could benefit from these insights. And until next time, keep exploring the science of life.